What is up, my crew? My name is Steven, and this is the Nook Podcast. Thank you so much for taking some time to listen today. I realize that this podcast is still rather new, but if you have listened to previous episodes, you may recognize some patterns. First and foremost, the content you will get here will always be God-centered. Secondly, I will dive into some heavy topics. One of my main goals at the onset of this thing was to get past the shiny plastic masks that we believers often wear. Within that, you will likely hear some similar topics as this continues. You'll hear recurring themes on spiritual health, mental health, marriage, and many others. The great thing is that it will take the form of conversations with people that I know or maybe have just met, so that no matter what we're talking about, no one ever feels like they're the only one feeling the way they do. My goal is to talk to people who have been through some hard stuff and have hung on to their faith, or maybe even rediscovered their faith, so that you, dear listener, can be encouraged to hang on to your faith and get through your own rough stuff. Having said all that, I am thrilled today to introduce you to Seth and Melanie Studley. They are both marriage coaches in Seattle, Washington. They have a podcast and a website full of real talk for couples looking for real answers in their marriages. If the title of this episode caught your eye, you are in for some great stories. No spoilers, but the title is quite literal. So settle in for my conversation with Seth and Melanie Studley. Well, just by way of introduction, can you each give me like a 60-second bio?
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Dang it. I'm not ready. I wasn't prepared.
I'm being polite here.
I know. Well, my name is Melanie Studley. I am a coach. I'm a high performance marriage coach. I'm a mom. We've got 3 kids. I am married to this guy standing right next to me. His name is Seth Studley. We've been married for almost 17 years, and this August will be 17 years. And together we host and created a podcast called the Anatomy of Marriage Podcast, where we are bringing real help to real couples because real couples need real help.
That's right. And we also have Anatomy of Sex podcast and Anatomy of Family, because it's just not about marriage. It's about family. It's how we relate to
all of it,
one another, bio, psychosocial, spiritual, all that stuff. And with that said, my name is Seth Studley. I am originally from South Carolina, born and raised there, went to undergrad there, and moved to Seattle when I was about 22 and been out here for a long time now. And I have a master's of science degree in marriage and family therapy. And I am also a high performance marriage coach and a mental health program developer, and then also a consultant. And I've been in that world for quite a long time in private practice, and recently just took that big old leap and quit my full-time job of full-time therapy practice for 15 years. Wow. And now we're doing high performance marriage coaching and podcasting full-time. And we're loving every second of it.
Well, can you describe, I'm very curious right out of the chute, what is high performance? How you get that designation?
Ooh. Now you're speaking our language.
I know, that's a great question.
How long can we talk about
right.
Go for it.
It is very specific to each client, but clients that work with us have typically been married at least for 5 years. They have some kids and they're wanting more from their marriage. Maybe they're doing okay, but there's just something in them that they know that there is more. There's more connection. There's more emotionality. This isn't just it, right? Like, okay, well, we go to the job, maybe we are physical. Sometimes we kind of have a good relationship, but we both know there's more. We have a growth mindset. So let's go and try to reach our full potential in whatever that is, because that is how Melanie and I look at life. I want to do all the things the best I can, right? Oftentimes I want to do too many things and then kind of, get sidetracked with things. But our high performance marriage coaching would be defined as, okay, you guys have a growth mindset, there's more, but maybe you've been having the same arguments and struggles just, one too many times and you feel stuck. Let's unravel that stuff and put some rocket fuel on this thing and get you guys to where you want to be. And it's different from coaching is different from therapy by way of, and like I said, I've been doing therapy for 15 years, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of couples, individual work, all this stuff. And that has its place clearly, but coaching is okay. There are gloves off. You're telling me something, but I'm looking over here. This is going on. I'm not going to let you slip by with that. I'm going to hold you very strictly accountable.
Right.
And we're going to do what you said you wanted to do.
It's like, think of any Olympic gold medalist person. Anyone at the top of their game has a coach, right?
True.
If you're the top tennis player in the world, you've got a coach. You're the top gymnast. You have coaches. And so that's the way we look at it with marriage coaching, because it's not the same. A therapist is not going to push you like I'm going to push you. A therapist is not in your back pocket every day. When you need real help, you cannot text your therapist, but you can text us.
Yeah, you can sometimes, but so we do 90-day programs and we have very high accountability with our clients. So part of the high performance also is, hey man, give me a status update.
Right.
It's Monday. It's Tuesday. Give me a status update. It's Wednesday. How's it going on those goals that we're talking about? Kind of thing.
Yeah, we love coaching, if you couldn't tell.
Yes. Well, it sounds like you're going to be the one that's asking the hard questions, even when the askee doesn't want to hear them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's our job. That's what people pay us for.
Okay.
Get in your face and make you better.
Well, I'm curious in that it just doesn't seem like you wake up one day, one or you or both of you, and just go, hey, you know what? Let's make marriage our thing. How do you arrive at such a fervor to go after it with other people for their marriages?
Right. Oh man, that comes from our own story. And no, we did not wake up one day and be like, hey, let's do this marriage thing for funsies. It came out of desperation. We've been married, like we said, for almost 17 years. And a few years into our marriage, I don't know what it was, like 3 or 4 years into our marriage, I had just given birth to our second son. So we had 2 little boys. One was 2 weeks old. And Seth had made a confession to me that he had been lying and he had been looking at some inappropriate things. And I shattered into 10 million pieces, and I shouldn't have. And I just annihilated my marriage. I annihilated my husband. He sort of annihilated me back. And we just had this miserable, handful of months. And it was from that misery.
Let me pause you there. When we're talking about like just misery, oh man, we're not just talking about, oh, there was a really big fight and I slept on the couch one night. No. It's not that. It was far beyond that. It was, it got to a point where Melanie got physical. She gave me a black eye that I had to sport around for about 2 weeks. And all this time I was in graduate school and finishing up all, my graduate studies to become a marriage and family therapist. So and part of it was like, I should have known this, or she was saying, you should know this. What's wrong with you? Kind of thing. But that, what happened was, that was just a boiling point to really shine a light on where we were kind of broken.
Like our deeper dysfunction.
Inside, right? I was looking to her for all my, security or contentment, all this stuff. She wasn't doing it. So I would get mad at her. She was looking to me for those same things. Oh, well, a good husband with this. And it was just back and forth forever. And then, that night where we had to get real, and I remember because we're Christian and we were in a church at the time, and
I was leading worship at the church too when this was happening. That was partially why it was so crazy. Anyway, sorry.
And just behind the scenes, it was just a train wreck. It was a train full of dumpster fires on fire.
Now there's a picture.
Going down the train tracks, right, with black smoke everywhere, just billowing. And so, we were doing all these forward-facing things, leading worship at church, and there was a mega church out here in Seattle at the time. And I was studying to be a therapist, a marriage therapist
at a Christian university,
all this stuff, and it was just a train wreck. And what the realization that I came to, just as a man, because we process things differently, was like, okay, Seth, this is me talking to myself on a really, really terrible night when I thought that even worse things were going to happen. Like Melanie was really, really going to hurt me. I was like, okay, God, I barricaded myself in a room and just was on my knees for half the night, just crying and praying, saying, God, I do not know what to do. I have nothing. I have zero, because everything I've done up to now obviously hasn't worked. So, and what came to me was like, okay, pray every day. And that's when I started setting prayer alarms, and we would pray no matter what for about a year and a half, 5 times a day.
No matter what.
When we woke up in the morning, I'd prayer alarms on my phone, 9 a.m., 12 p.m., 3 p.m., 6 p.m., and then before we went to bed at night. No matter what, and sometimes she would be so thankful. Oh my gosh, this is so great. And other times she would just pick up the phone and not even say anything and say, okay, well, I'm doing this anyway, and just praying, because I came to a realization of, I don't know anything. I'm not going to pretend to know anything. I know that I cannot go wrong with prayer. So I'm just going to cover it in prayer and go from there.
Yeah. And that was really the start. Yeah, that is a good saying. But that was really the start of all of this, because as he began to do what we call the prayer alarms, we use it now, even in our podcasts and with clients and stuff. But as he began to pray consistently, it changed how I showed up. And then we decided, we made a choice. Like, we are not going to get divorced. We are going to fix this. We're going to heal. And then when we started to look into different books and marriage resources, it just felt like all of them were fake. And I know that's a very unkind thing to say. There are many great marriage resources out there, but for someone like us, people like me, it just felt like none of them fit. And so we were like, how can we create resources that we wish we would have had back then? Like, how can we create that for the person who looks and sounds like me, who, is sort of from where I'm from, thinks how I think, what can I make for them to help them out? So that's really the birth of our whole journey, came from what we considered like the worst experience of our marriage, birthed the best experience of our marriage.
Sure. Well, can you tell me then, if I could back up just a little bit to that, let's just take it, say, a week away from that implosion. Was divorce on the table, or were you both just at such a place of rock bottomness that you knew that it was going to take work, you knew it was going to take time? What did it look like when there was still, debris laying around? What was it like still in that blast zone before things started to get better? That's a great question.
Yeah.
The wheels weren't completely falling off, but we were getting really close to times of more arguing than not at certain points. And it wasn't like, super, 3 a.m. fights every single night, but more of a like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells when I come home around Melanie. She's going to say something. She's going to be irritated. She's, what did I do or didn't do? And as a therapist, I have a real belief that most people, barring any type of real chronic mental health issue or something, just try to do the best with what we have. And we were both really trying to do the best. I wanted to be a good husband, a good father. So did she, but we didn't have the correct tools. And it was a lack of awareness and lack of those tools. So it did look like, oh man, okay, what's going on here? Is she going to be mad? What did I do? What I didn't do?
Right.
And then her thinking those same things about me as well.
But are you asking what was it like after he confessed, but before it got really terrible? Is that what you mean?
Well, just in that median time, just based on what you've said in that story of what that confession and the immediate fallout in those days when it still seemed like things might have been a bit touch and go. Just wondering, I guess not to over dramatize, but how close to the brink was it?
Oh man, it was right there. I was telling him basically daily that I wanted a divorce, but here's sort of the inner workings of how my mind was processing at the time. I was telling him, I want you to leave me, not I want to leave you. I was saying, I want you to leave me because I did not want to look like the bad guy. I wanted him to look like the jerk and I could look like a victim, right? Wow. I wanted it to be all his fault. Now I was completely ignoring the fact that I was the one who hit him. I was the one who was being viciously mean to him and saying horrendously terrible things. But I still wanted to put on this almost like a mask of, no, it's his fault. It's his fault. It's his fault, which in all honesty was completely inaccurate. It was not just his fault. It was our fault. And a lot of that was my fault. Probably more so was my fault than Seth's. That's for sure. And and him lying and looking at pornography was just like the tip. What did you always call it? It was like
it was the catalyst.
Yeah, it was the catalyst that sort of cracked open the facade that we had going, that we weren't even aware that we had.
It was
going.
it was like the one tiny snowflake that lands on the ledge of some,
like an avalanche,
like in the Swiss Alps or something.
Right.
Like, boom, that one hits, and then just, oh my goodness, all this stuff fell. But it wasn't just that one snowflake. It's like, oh my gosh, now we have an avalanche. It was a huge culmination of things that I was doing or not doing, and things that you were doing and not doing.
Yeah, it was bad.
Well, see, and you bring something to mind there, and I'm curious what you see in your coaching, because I know it's happened to friends of mine where it just seems like those couples get to that point. They get to a breaking point, but they're not looking at their own mess. They just, the intention just seems to be to vilify the other and constantly lobbing bombs over, while constantly thinking, well, it's them. It's not me. Is that happening more than we maybe even realize with lots of people?
Oh yes, absolutely. It's funny. We just got finished recording a podcast that will release later in the month, and we share our favorite personal growth resources. And this will make sense in a minute, but none of them are marriage resources, not a single one. And the reason, and we even made this explicitly known in this podcast episode, we're like, yeah, our show is all about marriage, but you cannot have a healthy marriage without two healthy individuals participating in the marriage. And when we talk about this, sometimes it's very confusing to say it. Sometimes it feels weird, but a marriage is really nothing other than the relationship that two people create. Right? If you think of it, a marriage isn't somewhere. You can't point at it.
Right.
Like, where is it? Is it in the back seat of the car? I mean, where is it? It's not anywhere. It's a creation.
Back seat of the car.
I didn't mean it in a weird way. I meant like, where is it? Is it in the, it just sounded weird.
Right.
But like a marriage is something that is a creation between two people. It is not something outside of them. So if the two people within that union are broken, then you cannot ever have a good marriage. And so, yes, all of this points back to individual growth, individual health, individual balance and wellness. It is not a list of say this nice thing to your spouse, do this love language thing. Yeah. Like those can help. But if that's what people are starting with, they will never end up where they want to end up.
Right. Because we get into a perpetual cycle of, I would be happy if ... fill in the blank. If I had a lot of money, or if you would just XYZ, or if she wasn't so bossy, or if he wasn't so controlling, then I can be happy. Right. And that's now I don't want to misconstrue anything. Like, there are really bad marriages out there to where, okay, maybe the wife or husband.
There are abusive.
Emotionally abusive, physically abusive, obviously. And where like, wow, this situation, this marriage creates a feeling in me like I really am depressed, or I really am anxious due to what you are doing, right? Yeah. But even in that, it's like, okay, I have choice, right? I have choice. And I'm not talking about like domestic violence situations or anything like that, but just the thinking like, oh, I would be happy if you would just, so where does the power, power shift there, right? If I say, hey, Melanie, you know what, if you would just be more affectionate to me and kiss me, then I would be happy.
Right.
Oh, well, wait a minute. I'm giving my own power
your
of
autonomy,
happiness and autonomy and personal sovereignty, or like even God-given ability to be happy to someone else.
Right.
Hold the phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute. So what can I do to, okay, if I need some real education and growth around there, then I'm going to read all the books we mentioned in the podcast. Right. So it really started as, well, I remember Melanie was trying to, this is part of our story too. She was trying to bust me with one Bible verse of like, God hates.
No, can I please tell that story?
Okay, yeah.
So this is, but what I was doing was Seth is referencing is I was so mad at Seth. And I was laying on our living room floor at night, and I was thumbing through the Bible, and I was literally looking for verses that were like, basically, God hates Seth, and here's how.
Trying to condemn me,
and because there's all these like weird verses that are like, God hates this, but he hates this other thing even more. And so here I am, like looking through them angrily, like, yeah, I'm going to bust Seth. And then I read one and I can't even remember what the verse was or what it even said, but I felt, man, I was like, oh my gosh, God hates this, but he hates exactly what you're doing, Melanie. And look at the mirror and look at how you're contributing to this. So yeah, I mean, I can't even remember why you shared that story, but it is a funny story.
Well, I think it goes part of what you were asking, I think before we went on a million tangents, right. me and Melanie do that often, but like what was the, we just didn't like start a marriage resource, yesterday and try to do all this stuff, right? That is where it started. So that was literally when you were looking for verses,
right?
To bust me, you were convicted and like, oh snap, I need to look inward.
That was my aha moment where I realized how I like your question was, you were talking about how do couples show up this way? And yes, that's how I was showing up. Most of our coaching clients think it's their spouse's fault. And until I realized and took ownership of how I was contributing terribly to the dysfunctioning of our relationship, nothing could have changed. Seth could never have done anything that would have made me happy because I was in and of myself extremely bitter. I was looking for ways to hurt him.
Oh, sure.
So there's nothing that, that's a change that needs to happen in me first.
Right.
But what do you say to a couple that maybe both parties aren't at that same broken point? Maybe one of them is right there and realizing, okay, I'm going to own my mess, but the other one is just light years away.
So basically all of our couples then?
Yeah.
Yes, that is
and
common.
we were there too, right?
Yes,
so we're not just saying
too.
like, our couples are terrible, but we were there too.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
A lot of it is slow education and imagery is very helpful. So it is very hard when there's a big distance between like one partner's awareness and the other partner's awareness. And I like to describe awareness like this. So there's one level of awareness if you're standing in a big field. Imagine you're standing in a big open field and all you can see is at ground level because that's where you're at and you're looking out and that's all you can see. If you get on a 10-foot ladder, you have a different vantage point. You can see things a little bit more clearly. If you get on the 10th floor of a 10-story building and you're on the very top, even more, you get to see even more of this perspective, right? So as we gain sort of inner wisdom, as we gain self-awareness, as we gain clarity around things, we can see things with a different perspective. So when we go into coaching sessions with clients that have a very dissonant and very different relationship to self-awareness, our job really is to walk and handhold the client who has at ground level, help them get higher and higher in their thinking, which is a huge task. I mean, that's why coaching is what it is and why it's designed the way it's designed is it's constant daily reminders. I mean, it's a lot.
And another thing that really works well is I've been a therapist for quite a long time, and I was trained in family systems theory, which looks at your family of origin, right? So we usually perpetuate what we have seen done, when we were growing up, right? Another Leslie Parrott, who we had on the show a couple times, talks about how our homes and how we grow up are the university of the relationships. So this is how we learn to be in partnership with our spouse or, our kids or whatever. And oftentimes we don't even know. We think, oh, well, mom did it this way, dad did it this way, and that's what I'm used to. So I'm going to bring that dynamic into my relationship with my wife or my relationship with the husband. And sometimes that just doesn't work. So I really like to walk couples through an introduction to the concept of family of origin and how that plays in. And we go to what we know. If we've done it 100 times, it's going to be difficult to get out of that rut right at first. But with encouragement and accountability of coaching, we can really help those clients hit those strides to where they want to be individually and in the marriage relationship.
Yeah.
So is it fair to assume then what you are looking to get into with couples is a very long-term thing? Because I think anybody who's garnered a few years under their belt of marriage knows that it's a long haul kind of a thing. There's no magic pill to fix a marriage in peril. Are you always looking to try to get a couple to commit to a long-term coaching, or at least the understanding that those corrective measures may take a good long time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we do 90 days, and we found that most couples reach at that 90-day mark. They're finally almost awakening to this new idea and new possibility that we've been talking about and exploring and working on for 90 days. And so most of them, we do like a retainer. What's that called?
Just a retainer option to
a retainer option.
Let's stay on for another month or two more months to walk people through this. But, there are other coaching options that are 6 months and then also a full year of coaching. Because one thing that I often say in therapy is, okay, the problem that you guys are sitting on my couch for did not take 90 days to form. It's not going to be fixed in 3 weeks, right? It's going to take a long time to undo these patterns, to talk about these hurts and stuff, and undo this stuck mindset. In therapy, we call it, we get to an impasse. It's like, yeah, we've tried everything. We don't know what to do. That's when folks come to coaching. Right. And we've even had couples say, we've been in therapy for like 7 years, and the things we did in 90 days was like rocket fuel over that 7 years of therapy, which is really cool.
Yeah. But looking at it with a long-term lens is always the best. There is no short-term fix. And the return on investment for coaching is just insane. Like the things that it impacts, it's generational at that point. You're talking about legacy stuff, right? This impacts grandchildren, finances, your children. I mean, it just impacts so much. So we love it.
Right. But I think that's also where people don't understand that if they're looking to divorce as a quick fix, are they really seeing the ripple effects on that same idea of what that does to kids, grandkids, extended friends, family, all that kind of stuff, that it's never as easy as it seems in the mind.
Right. That's actually one of the, we have had several clients that were on the brink of divorce when they signed up for coaching. And that's one of the practices we walk them through is, let's talk about what this will look like. Let's have a vision session around what does a divorce actually look like? And, that often changes how they show up for coaching, because they go, wait, it's the first time that someone has said to them, how will your kid respond to this? How will little Becky feel when she has to choose dad's house over mom's, right? And people will talk about, oh yeah, divorce is so hard. It's so this, it's so that, but they won't walk with you and paint you a picture of what that looks like, the cost financially, the cost emotionally, the cost to your children, all that. And now we're not anti-divorce. So I don't want anybody to hear that we're saying stay in your marriage no matter what. We do not believe that. But at the same exact time, often when people are running from something, they have a tendency not to think very critically about it. Yeah. They just go, yep, it would just be easier if you were gone. And even with a recent coaching client, I was like, even if you got a divorce, this person will never be out of your life. They will always be there. The relationship will literally always be there. This is the father of your children. This is, your kids will always have a relationship with this person. So it's part of coaching is to expand how people perceive things that they think they know about and to kind of walk them through that in a new lens. Because if you just, get out of a marriage and step into another one, you're not fixing any of the underlying issues. You'll have the same issues, just with a different passenger in your car.
Yeah. If you're anxious, we were talking about how you spent some time in South Carolina and now you live in Missouri. If I have anxiety in South Carolina, and I've been living there forever, that's going to follow me to Seattle. Right. That's going to follow you to Missouri, wherever you go, and unless, who is it? I think it was actually Freud, one of the great, fathers of psychology. And he has a quote and talks about anything gone unresolved always comes back in uglier ways. Right. And that's kind of like, sweep something under the rug. It's going to get gross and stinky after, a couple of months or some years. It's going to get really...
It's like sweeping a milkshake under a rug.
Yeah, seriously.
Like it's going to fester.
In the summer.
Oh, yeah. Give that a week.
Right.
I am curious about something, because it's obvious that you two are incredibly passionate about marriage. I'm guessing that's how you earn the title of high performance marriage coach. But when you're kind of living it all day, every day. And then you also then just have to go back and be Seth and Mel. We're married folk. Does that add pressure to the real moments of you guys in the kitchen when we're done here, or later on this weekend? Or is it just all encompassing?
Right. No, from my perspective, and maybe Seth has a different opinion, I find it very helpful. So we set ourselves up for success in the fact that we started our entire show saying that I gave Seth the black eye. So right out of the gate, our listeners are better than us, right? It's like they expect us to be like messy. So that actually is quite helpful. We have not set ourselves on a pedestal in being any type of perfection in marriage. And we have many, many episodes where we've actually gotten in arguments and solved them on the show on purpose. But they were real arguments. This was not the like.
Well, it was very unscripted.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Just the content of what we were talking about led us there. And something clicked in me, I think. So again, I grew up in the South where, you have to look like you got your stuff together.
Yep.
And I really felt the pressure of that all the time. And then I really felt the disconnect there too. So I still care what people think, and I'm not just like, yeah, let it all out or whatever.
Right.
But on the show, I've really come to a point of, okay, well, why not share this?
Right.
Because every time that I've shared something on the show, usually
it's beneficial.
It's beneficial, and we resolve it. So honestly, to your question, like what does it look like? After we're finished with the show and we go in the kitchen, which, because our studio is outside on our property. And when I went in the kitchen right before this, we just got a nanny, which is super awesome.
Amazing.
They were making pizza dough and there was flour everywhere. Right. So I'm like, okay, guys, I hope you clean that up.
Right.
But if it's cleaned up or not, we're still going to be like this, like, okay, that's a task to get done and go there. So I don't know about you, Melanie, but I never really have felt a pressure to be different on the show or off the show.
No,
maybe slightly, but then I'm like, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
Get real, Seth, is what I say to myself. And go, no, just
I think it's it's like almost a practice. It's like, and this is might sound weird, but it is like a spiritual practice of growth. The intention, the way we show up for our clients, the way we show up for our listeners on the podcast and on YouTube is our practice. It's our mission, if you will. Like it is our journey that we're on. And so living that out is deeply important to me. And so we model this even for our children. They will see us have conflict, but we will model the process of walking through that conflict as well as we can. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But are we trying? Absolutely. Yeah. And we love it.
That's funny. I don't know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, well, wouldn't you say that I realize that there's so many different metrics on how you can measure success, be it how many clients you have or how many listeners, downloads, all those kind of things. But bottom line is you're going to be that much more trustworthy just because you are so real. I mean, I guess I'd like to think that the feedback that you guys get, whether it's emails or comments or your actual clients, that people just trust you because you are so right up front with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have, probably 99% of feedback, like iTunes reviews or emails and stuff. And this isn't like anecdotally, this is like real. 99.5% of, man, thank you guys so much. I thought I was the only one with this problem, but I heard you guys talk about it and shed some light on it. And there's so much value in vulnerability. And I really enjoy, there's a part of me that really enjoys, not because it's like some weird enjoyment, selfish enjoyment, but a thing of like, man, I value leading with vulnerability because I feel it in my own spirit of like, what are you doing? You're just making crap up, Seth. Like, you know what I'm saying? And what I was going to say, I don't know why this popped in my mind. When I was a kid, there was a poster I don't know, my dad had a poster, maybe it was hanging in the barn or something. We grew up with horses and whatnot. And it was from, what is that show? The Little Rascals, I think, or something. And maybe it was Stymie that said this or whatever. I think his name was Stymie, or the other, I don't know, but it was just a quote. It's like a meme. It's the equivalent of a meme these days. Is be what you is, because if you ain't what you is, then no, be what you. Dang
You're never
it.
gonna
Oh my
remember.
gosh.
He's so bad at quotes.
Be what you ain't.
No, be what you is. Because if you is what you ain't,
then you ain't what you is.
Yeah.
Right. And of course that's like a Southern thing, but it's okay. How, if I don't show up like I am or who I am, then what am I doing? Hey, what are you doing, Seth? Kind of thing.
And that is one thing I will say with coaching is that even today I had an impromptu coaching call. One of our clients is on vacation and was sort of struggling with some stuff that she had to deal with. And so I, right off the bat, told her 3 stories that are personal stories of my own life, my own experience, to say, this is how it felt for me. This is how I walked through it. This is what I learned from it. How can you learn from this as well? Like, what can you, whatever. So we use our lives as real and as authentically as we can to help clients understand, like, you're not alone. Other people feel and think these things. Like, we have thought and felt these things or whatever. So yeah, there is no gain to us to be fake. That would be a loss.
And people want real stuff too. Like,
sure,
everything's fake and goofy with Instagram and Facebook and the best picture and all this stuff. It's like,
we're not about it.
That's right.
Yep. Well, and that's the tagline for my podcast is real faith in real time, because real faith is messy and rarely symmetrical, and real time. Like, we've already addressed that a little bit, and just that anything worth doing is going to take some time. And I say that through gritted teeth, because I've never been the patient type. But I can say full well, after nearly 36 years of marriage, that I know there's still some areas that I've got plenty of work to do.
What I had to have that type of mindset. It's like, okay, Seth, if you're going to take this island, then you got to burn the boats. Don't give yourself an out, because I know, and maybe you can relate to this. I know myself that if there's sometimes like an out or an easier way, then I'm going to take it. I've gone down that road 100 times. Like, I'll, hit snooze for the 18th time on the thing, but I said I was going to work out. And I know that not giving myself an out in that way is really a wise thing to do for me personally. And that's one of the nice things about coaching is the commitment to other people, in this case, Melanie and I, the verbal commitment, the time commitment, and also the financial commitment that really eliminates the excuses. Well, I committed to this. I invested financially in this, and okay, let's go. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know it's going to look different from this.
I ain't got nothing to swim back to.
Right.
Well, and Melanie, I'm just curious. I can assume, but how does that leave you feeling when you hear Seth say over and over, "I've burned the boat"?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best. I think from my perspective, we talk about this idea of most women have this, what Dave Ramsey calls like a safety gland, right? This and that's not a real thing, but he uses it. Where it's like, they want to feel safe, protected, like you are taking care of them. You're guarding the nest. You're watching their babies. You're doing whatever the sort of instinctual thing is. And for Seth to show up with that energy, the energy that he shows up with in the podcast, in real life, anytime we work with clients, there is nothing that I would like more than that, if that makes sense. It is the absolute best to feel so secure. And it's not me making him be secure. That's the thing. I think most wives can't even imagine what that feels like, to have a husband voluntarily say to you before you even ask, I am here for you. I will go through this. I will do what it takes. I will show up, right? I mean, wives, think about how good that would feel. Husbands, think about how good you would feel saying that to your wife. Right. And so often I think we look at marriage. Unfortunately, we often think of marriage as being the wedding day. We look at the wedding more than we look at the marriage. We prepare for the wedding way more. People spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on their weddings, which is a single day. But then they don't want to go get, therapy for $300 a pop. They go, oh, that's too much. Like, are you kidding me? You're talking about your whole life here. Come on now. But the way that I think that that I look at it is, yes, Seth showing up with that determination that there are no other options. So we're going to do the best we can right here with what we've got. And we're going to just be awesome together. And I mean, there's nothing better than that. So yeah, I'm glad you asked that question.
Well, and for whatever it's worth, as a partaker of your content, it's evident. And I think after years of video production and interviewing people and in and out of those situations like that, where I think I have a pretty sensitive BS-ometer, it's,
I like that.
Yeah,
it's so obvious that you guys are living what you're selling. And I so appreciate that. And that's why it was I was a little bit hesitant to reach out to you guys because, like I told you at the beginning, it's like I find you guys everywhere, and here I am, this little podcaster that started this thing back in February. Am I way too early in the journey to even try? So thank you so much for giving of your time in this. I am curious because you guys have been teasing new content, new something. Is it too early to break a secret or anything like that? Or what is it you guys have coming up?
No. So we have done a couple of conferences before. We've spoken at different marriage conferences at different churches. In fact, we're going to be in Kansas City in October at a church doing a day and a half marriage conference. But this time we are doing a full day conference in Seattle. Right near our house.
It's actually across the street from our house in Maple Valley, Washington. It's going to be the best thing ever. It is.
And it's called the Back to Basics Boot Camp, where we are going to bring couples back to basics.
Right.
You know, what is the shared vision of their marriage? We're going to talk about sex and intimacy. We're going to talk about some family of origin stuff. What else, Mel?
We're talking about unspoken expectations, which is a huge problem for most marriages and most couples. They have no idea that they've got a laundry list of unspoken expectations. We're also going to do some vision casting for couples. And then, so the event itself is free. The morning sessions are free, but you can come to a paid session in our backyard. That is it's a backyard boot camp. It's going to be so much fun. You're literally going to walk across the street because this is literally our street that we're living on.
And plus our property is really beautiful.
Our property is beautiful. Yeah, it's going to be so fun.
trees.
And we're going to work through your field guide, your marriage field guide that you get when you come to the event. And you are going to sit with us in our backyard, campfires, all that jazz. And we're going to work through all of this stuff together. And then we're going to go have a big fat party in Seattle.
Right.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
it is going to be amazing. Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be awesome. And we are super duper looking forward to it.
And if you if any of your listeners are like, oh, that sounds so amazing and the coaching sounds cool, this is like a total teaser of what coaching is like. This will give you a taste. If you're afraid and you just want to dip your toe in the water, this event will help seal the deal for you because you'll want to do coaching. There's no two ways about it.
Right. And that event is August 6th.
Yes.
One day before our 17th wedding anniversary.
Yep.
So
that's even better. Make it a party for what you guys have survived as well.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, does that mean then with restrictions dropping and public events coming back, will you guys be doing more event type things in other places?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's the hope. We did have a couple of
we had a bunch of them booked and and COVID just knocked them all off the map.
We had to cancel some stuff in Louisiana and all.
Yep. And in real life, in-person events are just phenomenal for couples. So I'm after that.
Yeah.
And retreats. I want to do retreats.
Retreats and speaking events is what we're all about. So we're super excited. August 6th, 2021. Back to Basics Boot Camp.
It's hard to say. It's like tongue twister.
Yeah.
I can already see the T-shirt. Well, where can folks find out more about the Studleys and everything that you guys have going on?
They can go to thestudleys.com, and that's just our website. You can find links to the podcast, coaching inquiries, past shows, and all kinds of stuff. But we're really active on Instagram and Facebook, and that is just Anatomy of Marriage. Either one. And we love to talk to people and interact.
Yeah. And we answer listener questions on our show as well. I don't know if we mentioned that. So you can write in and send us a question in at hello@anatomyofmarriage.com. We'll answer it on the show.
This was a conversation that I could have kept going with for hours. Seth and Melanie are amazing people who are absolutely called to do what they're doing, really showing up for people who decide that they are not going to settle for a mediocre marriage. If that's you, check out the Anatomy of Marriage podcast and the Studley's website. I've got links for both in the show notes. If you have any questions or comments for me, drop me an email. I would love to hear from you. The address is Stephen@nookpodcast.com. That's Stephen with a V at nookpodcast.com. That is always in the show notes as well. May the Lord bless abundantly all that you put your heart and hands to until we meet here again in the Nook. The Nook is a production of Sozo Digital Media.